When you see headlines about Dan Hampton's arrests and jail time, you might think this is just another story about a wasted career, but that completely misses the real story of one of football's most incredible warriors. This isn't about a career destroyed. It's about the crushing price of football glory and what happens when the game is over. Dan Hampton's journey started in the most unlikely way. Born in Oklahoma City in 1957, he moved to a farm near Cabot, Arkansas when he was 5 years old. At age 12, tragedy struck when he fell 30 to 45 feet from an elm tree. The fall was devastating, breaking his left heel, right ankle, and left wrist. Doctors put him in a wheelchair for months and warned that the damage was so bad he might have trouble walking for the rest of his life. Most kids would have given up on sports after an injury like that, but Hampton wasn't most kids. This early brush with physical trauma seemed to shape something deep inside him, a willingness to push through pain that would define his entire life. In high school, he was actually more interested in music than football, playing 6 different instruments, including guitar and saxophone. It took his football coach, Bill Reed, constantly asking him to leave the marching band and join the team before Hampton finally agreed during his junior year. Once he stepped on that football field, his raw talent was obvious. He quickly became a star on both offense and defense, earning a scholarship to the University of Arkansas. In college, under legendary coaches Frank Broyles and Lou Holtz, Hampton developed into one of the most dominant defensive players in the country. As a senior in 1978, he recorded 98 tackles, including 18 for a loss, earning first-team All-America honors and being named Southwest Conference Defensive Player of the Year. The Chicago Bears selected Hampton with the 4th overall pick in the 1979 NFL Draft, and he immediately became the cornerstone of what would become one of the most feared defenses in league history. The numbers tell an incredible story about his impact. When Hampton was on the field, the Bears won 75% of their games and allowed only 14 points per game. Without him, their winning percentage dropped to just 33%, and they gave up 23 points per game. During his 12 seasons, the Bears' defense led the NFL in nearly every major category, including fewest rushing yards, fewest total yards, and most sacks. What made Hampton truly special was his versatility. He's one of very few players in the Pro Football Hall of Fame to earn All-Pro and Pro Bowl honors at 2 different positions, defensive end and defensive tackle. This ability to dominate anywhere on the defensive line made him a nightmare for opposing offenses, which often had to assign multiple blockers just to contain him. His career reached its peak in 1985 when the Bears went 15-1, shut out both NFC playoff opponents, and crushed the New England Patriots 46-10 in Super Bowl XO. Hampton contributed 6.5 sacks during the regular season and recorded a sack and fumble recovery in the Super Bowl itself. The level of punishment Hampton endured to achieve this greatness is almost unimaginable. It makes you wonder what these players go through that we never see. If you find these stories as important as we do, please consider subscribing to see more untold stories from the world of sports. The true ledger of Hampton's career isn't written in his Hall of Fame plaque, it's written in surgical scars. Over his 12 NFL seasons, he endured 12 major surgeries on his knees alone, 6 on the right knee, and 6 on the left. 10 of these procedures happened while he was still an active player, with 2 more immediately after retirement. By his 11th season, he had already fractured 15 bones and received over 300 stitches. These numbers only tell part of the story. The daily reality of Hampton's career was one of constant, managed pain. After games, he would prop himself up on the trainer's table, light a cigar, and call out his regular order. "Give me a double with cheese." This wasn't food. It was code for 2 large ice bags and 2 ace bandage wraps, 1 for each battered knee. This post-game ritual became as much a part of his routine as putting on his uniform. The injuries went far beyond his knees. During a 1983 game, he tore a ligament in his right ring finger. Rather than have season-ending surgery, he had the training staff splint it so he could keep playing. The finger became grotesquely infected and swollen, causing him terrible pain for over a year. He actually considered having it cut off. In another instance, a finger was nearly torn off during a game against the Vikings. Hampton simply went to the locker room, had it stitched back on, and returned to the field with his hand in a protective club. By the end of his career, 8 of Hampton's fingers were misshapen and disfigured. He suffered from degenerative arthritis throughout his body. His back pain was so severe that he often had to lie on the floor just to watch television. This was the price of being Danimal, a nickname given to him by legendary broadcaster John Madden that perfectly captured his ferocious, relentless spirit. The culture of the NFL in the 1980s, especially within the Chicago Bears locker room, didn't just tolerate this level of sacrifice. It celebrated it as the highest form of virtue. Hampton's teammate Steve McMichael captured this perfectly when he said Hampton played the game the way it was supposed to be played. He neglected his body for the betterment of the team, and he was a leader. Notice that phrase, neglected his body, wasn't seen as self-destructive, but as noble sacrifice. This mindset was officially validated in 1990 when the Pro Football Writers Association honored Hampton with the George S. Halas Courage Award, given specifically to a player or coach who has performed with abandon despite injury. The award served as official endorsement that enduring physical agony was heroic. This created a powerful psychological framework where pain wasn't a warning signal, but a challenge to be conquered. When Hampton's playing career ended in 1990, the cheering stopped, but the pain didn't. He retired to a life of chronic physical discomfort in a body that had been systematically destroyed for 12 years. What many people don't understand is that this kind of chronic pain is a well-documented risk factor for serious mental health issues, including depression and substance abuse, as people often turn to alcohol or other substances to manage both physical and emotional distress. Hampton's legal troubles began appearing in the mid-1990s, not long after his retirement. Media reports reference incidents of driving while intoxicated in both 1996 and 1997, though specific details of these early cases aren't well documented. What is clear is that by this point, a pattern was already forming. The most publicized incident occurred on January 28, 2002, just days before Hampton was elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He was arrested in his home state of Arkansas on charges including driving while intoxicated, refusing to submit to a blood alcohol test, careless driving, and failure to register his vehicle. The timing wasn't lost on Hampton, who reportedly expressed concern to the arresting officer that the incident could hurt his Hall of Fame chances. In May 2002, Hampton pleaded guilty and received serious consequences: 1 week in jail, a $1,000 fine, and mandatory alcohol education courses. This jail sentence represented a significant legal repercussion, but it didn't resolve the underlying issues. Nearly 20 years later, on November 20th, 2021, Hampton was arrested again in Winfield, Indiana, where he lived. This incident was particularly dangerous. Police records showed he was driving with a blood alcohol content of 0.189, more than double the legal limit. Officers also found an open jug of wine in his truck. Hampton pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 1 year of probation and court-ordered substance abuse treatment. It's important to be clear, there's no excuse for drunk driving. These actions put innocent people at serious risk and deserve the legal consequences they received. However, understanding the context helps explain how someone celebrated for discipline on the field could struggle with such serious problems off it. The connection between Hampton's football career and his later struggles isn't simple cause and effect, but there are troubling parallels. The same warrior mentality that made him ignore torn ligaments and infected fingers may have contributed to ignoring other warning signs in his life. When someone spends 12 years learning to push through physical limits and dismiss consequences for the sake of a goal, that mindset can be tragically difficult to turn off. Chronic pain, which Hampton has lived with for decades, is strongly linked to increased rates of depression and substance abuse. His career was essentially a 12-year education in enduring agony, and his retirement became a lifetime of living with those consequences. Despite his legal troubles, Hampton has maintained a prominent public life. He remains beloved in Chicago, co-hosting the popular Bears post-game show on WGN Radio. Following his 2021 arrest, he was reportedly back on the radio the very next week. This illustrates the enduring power of his athletic legacy, the goodwill generated as a cornerstone of the legendary 1985 Bears, has afforded him professional security that most people with similar legal records would never receive. Dan Hampton's story forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about the true cost of football glory. His legacy isn't simply triumph or tragedy, it's both. He represents the apex of football's ideals of toughness and sacrifice, a key reason for one of the most dominant eras in NFL history. But his life also serves as a stark reminder of the devastating long-term consequences that can follow a career built on systematic physical destruction. The man nicknamed Danimal could dominate the strongest opponents on the field, but has struggled with demons that no amount of toughness could conquer. His story challenges us to think more deeply about what we celebrate in sports and what responsibility we have to athletes after their playing days end. Hampton's legacy is complicated, but it's also deeply human. He gave everything he had to the game of football, and football took everything it could from him. Understanding that complexity doesn't excuse his mistakes, but it does help us see the full picture of what it means to be a warrior in America's most violent sport. If these stories matter to you and you want to see more honest discussions about the real costs of athletic glory, please subscribe and help us continue telling these important stories.